Rules Committee come to order, and thank you very much for joining us today. Today we have an opportunity to discuss important issues that deal with the West, specifically Oregon and the state of Washington and California as they deal with their water issues. We're going to consider H.R. 2898, the Western Water and the American Food Security Act of 2015, and H.R. 3038, the Highway and Transportation Funding Act of 2015. As this committee knows, and each of our members, H.R. 2898 is a response to the terrible drought that has been very costly and difficult in dealing with farmers and ranchers and people who work and live in California particularly. And it's affected California by limiting their access to water and harming farmers who provide this nation with the breadbasket, the food that's necessary for a majority of our fruits and vegetables. Much of the damaging effects of the drought are man-made and preventable, which is why this bill would arm Californians with the tools I believe and they need that they would use to alleviate some of the impact of droughts in the short run and also in the long term. I'm delighted to see my dear friend David Valadeo from California who's here, as well as Tom McClintock and certainly Jared Huffman, who are all Californians who are here to discuss this important issue. H.R. 3038 would extend the authorizations of the Federal Surface Transportation Programs through December 18th, 2015. The Highway Trust Fund is set to expire in a few weeks, so what we're trying to do is to do this bill ahead of time, pass it to our colleagues in the United States Senate so that we would be able to have a surety of funding through December the 18th, 2015. With us today, we do have Mr. McClintock. Tom, thank you for being here. I know you live in Northern California where the water issue, despite some more abundance of water that's available, you're definitely part of the issue, and we're delighted that you're here. And also Mr. Jared Huffman, also of California. And I want to welcome both of you to the Rules Committee today to join us. I also acknowledge the gentleman, David Valadeo, who is a very dear friend of mine, who I have been in California and seen the men and women who he represents and know that they are well represented. And Mr. Valadeo, Congressman, I want to thank you for being at the Rules Committee today and acknowledge your work on this important bill as we move forward. Gentlemen, both of you have been to the Rules Committee before. You know that this committee counts on not only your representation of the important facts of this case, but also giving us the important policy perspectives on this. I am aware that each of you represent also Californians, people back home who are many times divided on this important issue. But this committee is here to hear the facts of the case and to try and make a determination about moving a piece of legislation that I've been convinced is in the better interest. And I'm delighted that you're here. I'd like to defer, if I can, for an opening statement to the gentleman, the ranking member of the committee, the gentlewoman, Mrs. Slaughter. Gentlewoman's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I've contributed over years about all I can say about California water. I wish you had more, but I'm not really sure what the Congress can do about it. So I'm sure just repeat from what I said last year. Thank you.
I thank the gentlewoman. Until the 1st of May, the state of Texas was very much not only in solidarity with each of you as you prayed for rain, as you worked together to try and get more water and to conserve it and to effectively utilize it. And then in the month of May, 32 trillion gallons of water fell in the state of Texas. And those 32 trillion gallons were really a response to the prayers and wishes of Texans. And about June 1st, we stopped praying for more water. But I want you to know that I will never in my life look at a drought nor a flood in the same way after going through years of a drought. And God sustains his people in various ways, and I'm a thankful servant. Gentlemen, welcome. Anything you have ready will be entered the record. And we'll get started. The gentleman, Mr. McClintock, is recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for considering the structured rule for H.R. 2898, the Western Water and American Food Security Act of 2015. The Natural Resources Committee ordered the bill favorably reported on July the 9th and filed its report on the bill on July the 13th. We ask that you make this text as represented by Rules Committee Print 114-23 in order, and I'd ask that sufficient debate time be equally divided between the majority and minority bill managers. And finally, I'd ask that you make in order a small manager's amendment that makes one technical and one clarifying change to the reported text. This bill is long overdue, and if I could correct the chairman in one respect, versions of this bill far predate the drought. In both the 112th and 113th Congresses, the House passed comprehensive water legislation to address the water crisis before it became a crisis. For 4 years, it was blocked by Senate Democrats. But the public is now awakened to the suffering that our current policies have caused, and the Senate has since changed management. And although it's now too late to avert the economic and environmental damage the current drought has caused, these policies, if enacted now, can avert suffering that will otherwise be caused by the next one. After all, droughts are nature's fault. They happen, but water shortages are our fault. Water shortages are a deliberate choice that we made 40 years ago when we stopped building new federal multi-purpose dams. For example, we've not added a single major reservoir in California over 1 million acre-feet since 1979, while the population of our state has nearly doubled. This bill chooses that the West not be held hostage by the next drought. Even before the drought, short-sighted policies created severe water shortages in California's Central Valley that devastated the economy and created the spectacle of food lines in one of the most fertile agricultural regions in the country. That must never be allowed to happen again. This bill streamlines the permitting process that's completely stalled the consideration of even modest storage projects. It puts us steps closer toward new capacity at Shasta and Los Vaqueros reservoirs and the construction of new reservoirs at sites in Temperance Flat by putting a completion date on never-ending federal studies, and authorizes these projects if they're non-federally funded. It encourages hatcheries to produce fish populations. It replaces cost-prohibitive requirements for a cold water fishery on the hot San Joaquin Valley floor with a warm water fishery conducive to natural conditions there. It provides operational flexibility to prevent unnecessary spills of what precious little water remains behind our dams, and it strengthens the legal protections for Northern California communities to prevent state officials from fulfilling their threats to ignore long-established California water rights. In short, it restores common sense to our water policy, not only in California, but the entire Western United States. So I'd ask that we pass this comprehensive bill a third time and hope that the new Senate will quickly take it up and pass it.
Mr. McClintock, thank you very much. It's very succinct, and I don't mind being corrected. In fact, I was aware that this issue has been around for a while, and thank you for correcting the record for me. And I'm sure that the record that I will reprovide our great stenographer will correct my inaccuracies. Thank you very much. Mr. Huffman, welcome. I'm delighted that you're here. Gentleman's recognized.
Good to see you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Nice to be back in your hearing room and, of course, with our ranking member as well. Feels like just last winter we were here talking about the same subject, and it is important to acknowledge that while this is being represented as a drought bill, it's really not. It's a repackaging of a bill that was around before this drought, and that is one of the reasons why we're introducing actual drought legislation that has a number of co-sponsors from around the country, and we hope we'll have an opportunity to be in this room to talk with you about moving a democratic alternative on responding to the drought forward at the right time. The bill title, pretty much everything in this bill is the same, that we have the same thing we discussed last year and the year before. We're back with another bill that harms West Coast fisheries and tribal interests, undermines state law, micromanages the most complex water system in the world, and in a way that definitely benefits a select few at the expense of many others across the state of California. And given the many issues with this bill, I will request an open rule, Mr. Chairman, so we can try and minimize the bill's harmful language through the amendment process. I hope that someday, again, we'll have a chance to discuss a true comprehensive west-wide approach to our water shortages and droughts that we know are only going to become more frequent and more severe with climate change, instead of divisive ideas that do pit our state's water users against each other and our needs against each other. Like the past several California water bills from my Republican colleagues that have been rushed through, this bill was crafted behind closed doors, has received virtually no public review or scrutiny. That means no outreach to tribal interests, to the fishing industry, to the state's many and varied water districts, or to state and federal water agencies with responsibility for clean water and fisheries management. And it's pretty clear why that short-circuited process exists. When this bill is examined closely, it begins to fall apart. There are all sorts of unintended consequences, perhaps some intended consequences that don't withstand public scrutiny very well. The Interior Department wrote a withering 3-page letter about this bill last week in lieu of testimony. I'll just quote a little bit of that. I quote, "Instead of increasing water supplies, H.R. 2898 dictates operational decisions and imposes an additional new legal standard. Instead of saving water, this could actually limit water supplies by creating new and confusing conflicts with existing laws and thereby adding an unnecessary layer of complexity to federal and state project operations. As a result of this additional standard, we, the Interior Department, believe H.R. 2898 will slow decision-making, generate significant litigation, and limit the real-time operational flexibility that is so critical to maximizing water delivery." Unfortunately, this bill, like previous ones, has not had the kind of hearing where witnesses, experts, water managers would tell us about the merits of the bill or the lack of such merits. And instead, we're once again rushing to the floor with a piece of legislation that simply redistributes water, primarily to the benefit of a number of large industrial farming operations in the San Joaquin Valley at the expense of lots of other stakeholders, other regions, and other values. I have introduced a drought response bill, as I said, Mr. Chairman, H.R. 2983, that includes significant resources to support farm workers and others who are out of work, as well as long-term investments in water supply reliability. If my Republican colleagues truly care about the challenges faced by farm workers and others affected in this drought, I hope they'll join me in backing some real solutions and provide meaningful assistance that stretch our existing limited water supply. My bill is also supported by the Association of California Water Agencies, California Association of Sanitation Agencies, numerous other water agencies, environmental groups, and stakeholders. Yet despite the importance of this issue, we continue to see no real legislative hearings on the subject, not in the last Congress, not in this Congress, and not on this bill, not yet on my bill either. In addition to farm worker jobs, there are jobs at stake here up and down the coast. H.R. 2898 guts fishery protections that support thousands of fishing industry jobs, not just in California, but also in Oregon and all the way up to Washington State and Alaska. We last suffered a closure of the West Coast salmon fishery in 2008 and 2009, and that required $158 million in disaster relief from Congress. Passing this bill will make another devastating fishing season closure in the near future much more likely. This bill is guaranteed to create legal uncertainty for local communities and water managers. It expressly preempts state water law and waives and weakens the application of bedrock federal environmental laws like the Endangered Species Act and NEPA. The scope of harmful provisions in this bill is matched only by the number of really important provisions that are not in the bill. If enacted, this bill does nothing to prevent the hundreds of billions of gallons of water that are lost each year simply because of aging and inefficient infrastructure. It does nothing to capture the hundreds of thousands of acre-feet of wastewater that could be reused for agriculture, industry, even drinking water throughout the state of California. Local water and wastewater agencies are crying out for federal leadership on this. They want Congress to do something to help on this front, and this bill is silent on those opportunities. This bill will do nothing to solve California's water problems through a thoughtful, science-based, stakeholder-inclusive process. A near-unanimous California legislature, on the other hand, stepped up to this challenge last year. They passed a multi-billion-dollar water bond measure They've crafted significant water reforms in full public view, with hearings, with oversight and transparency. It's possible to solve water problems, but it does need to be done in a deliberative, collaborative, and transparent way. And it's my hope that eventually Congress will give that a try. I stand ready to work across the aisle on real solutions that will improve our water supply picture and not simply reignite water wars in California and other western states. At the very least, Mr. Chairman, I would hope this committee would provide an open rule so we can really try to address some of the very harmful provisions in this bill. And with that, I yield back.
Mr. Huffman, thank you very much. Mr. Costa, you've now walked in, and I did not include you on this first panel. I would invite the gentleman to please come and grab a seat right there in the middle if he intends to give testimony. And the gentleman would be, there's a chair right there, right behind you. And we'll just put that, it says reserved for Jim Costa right there. And as the gentleman knows, he's been up the Rules Committee. We're delighted that you've taken time to join us today. The committee understands you're not only a part of the California delegation, but intimately involved in this process of water resources, and anything the gentleman has in writing that would help us to help our stenographer, I encourage him to lead that at the time he finishes. Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I have submitted 3 amendments, but I'd like to talk on one of them. And I want to commend the Rules Committee for taking the time to hear all of us. I get a little frustrated, having worked in this issue for 30 years as chairman of the Assembly Water Committee in the state legislature and chairman of the Senate Ag and Water Committee. I have worked with every region of California. And to use terms like igniting water wars, let me just say very clearly, water has always been controversial in California and in the West, and it will continue to be. But we should work together to the degree we can try to resolve our differences. Since the early 1990s, the federal and state lawmakers and regulators have made a number of policy choices related to implementation of the Endangered Species Act as it relates to the Central Valley Project Improvement, which is the main federal project in California that on an average year can provide as much as 6 million acre-feet of water. From the Trinity River to the Shasta Reservoir to the San Francisco Bay Delta that you're familiar with, San Francisco, and the San Joaquin River, about 3.5 million acre-feet of the Central Valley Project, of that 6 million acre-feet, has been rededicated for environmental management purposes over the last 20 years. The Central Valley Project Improvement Act alone, since its enactment, has resulted in over 17 million acre-feet of water being prioritized for different needs and for different purposes. Now, it's important to note that this doesn't mean that the water doesn't serve multiple purposes, because it does within the system. But it does mean that the use has been prioritized, which is the challenge, to meet environmental objectives, and human needs are a distant second to those environmental uses. These challenges have had a large impact on many Californians, a harmful impact to people I represent, including those from small, rural, and often disadvantaged communities, as well as to larger areas like Silicon Valley and Los Angeles. Approximately 25 million people in 7 of the nation's top 10 agricultural counties have had their water supplies diminished and their water costs escalate over the last 20 years, like you're now starting to experience in Florida. Many of the farmers I serve have seen their water supplies diminish to approximately 40% of their long-term average. 40%. That is significant. And in the last 2 years, the area that I represent with my colleagues, Congressman Valadao and Congressman Nunes and McCarthy, we have had a zero water allocation under the Federal Water Project. I had a reporter said that you're trying to get your farmers more water. I said, no, I'm trying to get them some water. Because they have no, so what do you mean? Well, they have no water now outside of what their groundwater is. Many of the farmers I serve have seen their water supplies diminish, obviously, greatly. Communities that I represent have had their drinking wells go dry and leaving entire towns without water for drinking. Obviously, that's devastating. These incredibly harmful impacts have begged a very simple question, and that is, how has society benefited from this policy choice to dedicate water for important environmental purposes like preventing the extinction of species? That is an important issue. The answer, I'm sad to say, seems to be very little. Unfortunately, however, ultimately, we just don't know. And that's the purpose of the amendment that I have before you. We don't know because we don't have an accurate reporting on the accounting of how in-stream flows are used, what the benefit is expected to be achieved by them, and whether or not the benefit was achieved by those flows. In other words, there's no matrix and there's no determination, are we meeting the outcomes for these purposes? The dedication of millions of acre-feet of water and the expenditure of billions of dollars has resulted in a water supply situation that, frankly, in all the years that I've been dealing with this issue, has never been worse. Now, obviously, 4 consecutive dry years is a part of the contributing factor. Likewise, the condition of the species to which we have dedicated so much water has never been so much at risk. I'd feel better about it if the species were doing better. The latest Delta smelt populations index is 0. And the status of the protected salmon is in serious doubt. While extinction of these species isn't probable given the hatchery-based fish populations, the potential loss of the wild populations is of grave concern to all of us. One thing that the drought has achieved to make the operational priorities of projects abundantly clear is that their first priority is flood control. Wow, I pray every morning and I do a rain dance at night that we would have to worry about flood control. Also followed, secondly, by salmon temperature management, which is a real challenge. And then followed by protecting the Bay Delta water quality and so that people can drink fresh water. And finally, any possible deliveries to communities that involve refugees and wildlife and to farms, which I represent. I'm introducing this amendment to create some accountability, which is something we don't do very well here in government, and transparency in the environmental management efforts underway so that we can better understand why it isn't working and why. This way, the resources that we dedicate and the disproportionate sacrifices being made by so many Californians can result at least in an effective and we hope ultimately desirable outcomes. We all understand that the environmental management is complicated and it's uncertain in light of climate change. But however, without collecting and collating and reporting data, we will never be able to improve the efficacy of our efforts to achieve the multiple and sometimes competing purposes for these water projects. So this is a common sense amendment. It tries to measure outcomes and to determine whether or not the water that is being dedicated for environmental purposes is really having the benefit that is desired. So I urge that my amendment be made in order, and I yield back the balance of my time. Let me also indicate that Congressman McNerney has a measure here that deals with the water hyacinth issue, and I want to go on record as supporting that as a co-sponsor of that amendment. The hyacinth issue plugged up one of the major intakes for the water project to move water and resulted in a loss of water as a result of that and was the single largest cost to clearing that up. It's a good amendment, and I would like the committee to support that as well.
Thank you very much. Mr. McClintock, I heard the words large farming interest and I heard other stakeholders. So we have farming interest on one side. Who's on the other? Who are these stakeholders?
Well, first let me point out that you're talking about 20,000 Central Valley farm working jobs that were destroyed last year as a result of the cutbacks in water deliveries.
That's just big business, isn't it?
No, those are individual
Oh, those are
farm
people's
workers.
jobs.
You know, we talk about agricultural water. I don't believe there's such a thing as agricultural water. You and I will, as residential consumers, will use between 100 and 200 gallons of water a day to do all the things we do at our homes. Wash the clothes and the dishes and sprinkle the lawns and take showers, all the things that we do. That's 100 to 200 gallons a day per person. But order a cheeseburger for lunch, you've just consumed 750 gallons of water because that's what it takes to grow the stuff in that cheeseburger. You buy a pair of jeans at the store, you've just consumed 1,800 gallons of water to grow the stuff that's in those jeans. So really what we're talking about is water for people. And that's why we build dams and aqueducts. We have plenty of water. The problem is it's unevenly distributed over time and distance. We build dams to transport water from wet years into dry years. We build aqueducts to transport it from wet areas to dry regions. We don't build these facilities so that we can more efficiently dump this water into the Pacific Ocean. Water tends to get there on its own very nicely. We build these facilities so that surplus water can be retained for beneficial human use. And that's a policy that began changing 40 years ago, and we're now living with the result of this. Man-made droughts, even in times of plenty, and catastrophic water shortages when nature actually strikes us with a real drought. That's what this bill addresses. I wish we had passed it years ago when it could have averted the suffering we're having today. Passing it now will avert the suffering in the next drought.
Thank you very much. Chairman Cole. No question. Gentleman does not seek time. Gentlewoman from New York does not seek time. Judge Hastings. Gentleman will reserve his time for the floor. Thank you very much. Yields back his time. The gentleman from the state of Washington, does he seek time? Gentleman would use his time. I want to thank all three of you for being here. As has been suggested, not a new issue. I'm with Mr. Costa. I'd pray for rain. We did that in Texas. We got enough people lined up. The good Lord heard us. Jim, 32 trillion gallons of water.
Your prayers were answered.
Amen.
But if I may add, though,
You know,
If I may add,
if they ask me, I might.
a water policy, though, that is based on prayer is not much of a policy.
Well,
No, we have a broken water system in California, and we've acknowledged that for too many years, and we need to fix it. And this is part of the legislation that we'll attempt to try to deal with. It's not perfect, and it will make changes. It's a work in progress, but I support the legislation.
well, I really don't wish you to have 32 trillion gallons because half the hills would slide into the water. And I get that too, so you need them an inch at a time. I want to thank all three of you for, yes, ma'am.
Before you close the hearing, may I have unanimous consent to put the statement of administration policy in?
Without objection.
Basically, it says the administration supports the efforts to alleviate the effects of drought, but concerned with Section 401, which establishes deadlines for completing feasibility studies for water storage projects. Provisions unnecessary, the dates provided could prevent the participation of non-federal partners in studies and may inhibit the administration's ability to consider a full range of options for addressing these issues. And if this should be presented to the president, his senior advisors would recommend a veto. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. And I want to thank the gentleman for being here. The chairman does not see anyone else who seeks to address the committee on this H.R. 2898, so this closes the hearing portion of 2898. I'd like to, if I can, acknowledge that I've got a number of my interns from my congressional office who are here, and I want to thank them for being here. First of all, a graduate of Texas Christian University, Pat Vickery, class of 2015, Rex Humphreys, UVA, class of 2017, Parker Collins, Mr. Football from SMU, class of 2018, Robert Menke, Harvard, a young man who goes to Harvard University from Dallas, Texas, I believe who's on the lacrosse team, Emily Bearden from Lakewood, Texas, the Georgia class of 2017, and Haley Eisenberg, who will join the Harvard women's basketball team. Louise, if she stood up, you'd look up to her, I guarantee you. And Haley Eisenberg is Harvard class of 2020. All these students from Dallas, Texas, they're great people, and I want to thank them for taking time to joining us this summer.
They do wonderful work for us.
That for every one of us and being here at the Rules Committee. And before they leave, they're going to look up there and see your picture, and somebody will say, you know what, that gal up there looked like the younger woman who was with her picture on the wall. And I'll say, yes, she was hung one day up here. We are now going to, as you know, I announced that we would have Mr. Ryan, who would be here for H.R. 3038, the Highway and Transportation Funding Act of 2015, Part 2. But we're going to do that after the votes that we're on, and so, subject to call the chair, we will return at that time. Thank you very much.
You have to head down.
Haley, all Order, and thank you very much. We're returning from a vote on the floor, and we're delighted now to move to H.R. 3038, the Highway and Transportation Funding Act of 2015, Part 2. We fully anticipate today that we will have the Honorable Bill Schuster and the Honorable Paul Ryan. I note that the gentleman from Wisconsin is here. Mr. Chairman, thank you for taking time to be with us today. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. And what you just may end up tap dancing and being the star for a few minutes before Bill Schuster gets here. We also believe that Sandy Levin, Honorable Sandy Levin, the ranking member of the Ways and Means Committee, your dear friend, would also be here. But until that happens,
happy to do so.
You're the only game in town, so we're willing.
I can do this.
This committee's been up here for a while today, and so we're trying to get our work done.
Sure, you
very
guys
efficiently.
Absolutely, I'll do the Ways and Means side and
I
defer.
think you could
T&I.
probably cover all three sides for this
Easy enough.
same problem. What I'd like to do before you come here, Paul, is to say thank you very much for coming here. This is an important issue. The highway funding bill has been before us for a long time. Bill Schuster was up here last year. You were up here last year. As we talked about extending it into the year, you've come back. You've tried to update us. You're looking for revenue, which will allow us to go further to get a deal. And I appreciate you being here, but I want to defer, if I can, to the gentleman on behalf of our friends the Democrats, see if Judge Hastings to add anything before you come up here, because I know he wants to say thank you for taking time to be here. Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you for taking time to be here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Judge Hastings.
Perfect.
Paul,
I
we
like
try
this
and be good to
particular hearing,
people
I
up
think.
here. We try and be good to everybody, and everybody is here for a reason. I also want to thank you for taking time. You've been most instrumental in making sure that a lot of things around this place are funded. You're moving a lot of issues and doing a lot of things. I want to thank you for your work on TPA. I know it wasn't as much fun as you had hoped it would be, but it got done, and I want to thank you.
I want to thank you for all your work.
Yes, sir, we worked together, but for working together. You're also here to work with this committee on getting a highway transportation bill to the floor, and the gentleman's recognized.
Thank you very much. So I'm here to talk about the Highway and Transportation Funding Act of 2015. Here's what it does. I'll just go through it line by line, more or less. We extend the Highway Trust Fund through December 18th. Why are we doing that? Our goal is to get a long-term highway funding solution, a 6-year bill. But the Highway Trust Fund runs out of money at the end of the month. And we know that in law, we will not get a 6-year solution put in place. So we need to buy ourselves time to continue the bipartisan conversations that are underway right now to come up with a 6-year solution to do a multi-year highway bill, which is our goal. And we will need a few more months to do that. Therefore, extend the trust fund throughout the rest of this year so that highway departments in each of our states have a little bit of certainty and predictability. Doing this costs $8 billion. We pay for it without any tax increases. Instead, we improve tax compliance with some common sense reforms that we've been looking at doing for quite some time, and we get spending savings elsewhere in the budget. We do things like require lenders to report some more information about their mortgages, information that is already reported, just not on their tax forms. Require estates to report the value of property upon the owner's death. Give the IRS a little more time to track down misleading tax returns. We extend the current budget treatment of TSA fees. Let me get into that one a little bit, because I think there's been a little confusion of this. In the budget agreement we did a few years ago, which people call Ryan Murray around here, we had TSA fees. Those fees are not being raised at all in this. Those fees went to the mandatory spending account into the general fund. But at the end, in about 8 years, they all of a sudden pop back over to discretionary. We just keep it back in the mandatory account. So we keep the accounting treatment of TSA fees in mandatory spending in the general fund instead of treating it differently. So we're keeping the intent and the spirit and the agreement of the Murray-Ryan budget agreement going forward. We also, we do not increase any fees at all. What we do is we rope money off from Congress so that we can't spend it on other things. That's effectively what we do with respect to TSA fees. We want to get a highway bill that's multi-year. Every one of our states has multi-year projects in the offing that they want to engage in, that they want to do. We have a $90 billion shortfall in the Highway Trust Fund starting in July. And so what we're trying to do is work on a bicameral, bipartisan basis to come up with a solution to fill this big shortfall. We are in the middle of discussions now. We know that those discussions will at least take a couple of months to come to fruition. And that is why we are bringing this bipartisan bill to the floor to extend the solvency of the Highway Trust Fund to December 18th and to come up with $8 billion in savings without tax increases or fee increases, but spending savings and some compliance measures that we think make it easier for people to pay their taxes and make tax compliance simpler and therefore saving more money.
And that's your story, and
That's my story, and I can go through any of the details if you'd like to.
well, let me just ask this. There's only so much about sausage making you get into, but TSA fees, we're going to switch back to discretionary.
Right, so the fees, we're gonna stay where they are. So the fees, we're not gonna go up or down. The fees, as far as the airline passengers are concerned, no change. As far as the accounting here in Congress, in government, they were gonna go from being dedicated to the general fund and mandatory spending over to discretionary spending.
Right.
And so
So now
we
you're
are,
just going to spend 100% of everything that comes in.
That's right.
Instead of them being appropriated.
correct. So we're
I
just
get-
keeping it over in the mandatory
I
account.
wanted to make sure I got that, and I
Yeah,
think
no,
that
no
was-
change in fee to an airline passenger occurs here.
Right, the netting out is, it goes as it comes in and it's spent. Can we ever get it back?
We just continue the accounting treatment of TSA fees that we
we've
have in
said-
place right now. The
okay.
problem is there was a sunset in that law, because, I can go technical, but when we wrote that law, we had to write it based on projections going forward. And those projections went forward 10 years. That was 2 years ago, so now we have to extend it to 2 more years to keep it in the mandatory column.
Yeah, but now go the last component to me. Mr. Chairman Schuster, feel free to join us at the table. We had previously announced
Talking TSA fees.
that you would be here. How do you get from TSA fees to then highway funding?
So that saves $3 billion, meaning $3 billion that is not
So it's
spent on
available.
discretionary spending.
Now available.
Correct. For this, for highways.
I get it.
Then, the revenue compliance measures save money because it makes it easier for people to comply with their taxes. One of them, for example, is on tax filing. People who are membership of partnerships, sub-S corporations, or say an LLC, the deadline for reporting the income to members of partnerships is April 15th, and the deadline for members of partnerships to report that income is April 15th. So what's happening is the accountants, AICPA, came to us and asked us to fix this. So we moved the deadline for reporting the income to the partners March 15th, so they have a month to be able to comply with their taxes that are due April 15th. Things like that are what we're doing here. Mortgage, when you submit your mortgage interest deduction, right now there's a report that people are reporting interest deduction on other properties, not the property where the interest actually is attached to. So just add the address of the property on the form as well, which is information that's already provided. Things like that, we believe, make it easier for tax compliance to occur and therefore saves us $5 billion combined with the TSA issue, and that gets us $8 billion, meaning no fee increase, no tax increase, gets us the ability to extend the Highway Trust Fund through December 18th.
And the tax simplification is people don't have to go back and change to refile their taxes, which means the IRS handles less paper.
That's exactly right. What was happening was a lot of people in partnerships were having to file extensions because they just got their information with which to file their taxes too late.
Which delayed the taxes being paid. Well, I get that. Mr. Chairman, you and I also spoke today about another important matter, which is an airline change. And
Yes.
I know that you and I had agreed that you will include that
Absolutely.
as something later, that this is a piece of legislation that we're trying to use to entice the Senate to come along with us to get this issue done, not something that we're trying to add anything else, but that you and I have that agreement.
Yeah, the issue we discussed, which is American, if I'm not mistaken.
American Airlines.
We will put that in a vehicle that we are certain is going to go into law.
Yes, sir, and I appreciate that very much. I have no problem working with you at all.
We expect to have what we call a tax extender package in the fall, and it's my plan to put it there.
Yeah, well, we got to get that done this year, and I know you've committed yourself to doing that.
Yes.
And thank you very much. Chairman Schuster, thank you very much for coming here. I'm delighted that you're here. I'm Delighted that you decided to come back from Western Pennsylvania after the great weekend that you had. Your tan looks great. Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the members of the Rules Committee. Appreciate the opportunity to be here before you. Let me start out first by saying thanks to Chairman Ryan for working with us. He's figured out where to get these dollars to do a patch, a short-term patch. A lot of people don't want to be here, but we are. I think that moving forward to get to a long-term bill and talking to Paul, talking to leadership on our side of the aisle, I believe we can get there. It's just we can't get there in the next 3 weeks. So this is the best path forward is to do this clean extension, get us to December the 18th, the end of the year, making sure that the construction season is not disrupted, although it already has started to be disrupted. But if we do this, we will continue to see those projects move forward. So again, I think this is the best path forward to doing this. And again, if we don't, reimbursements will stop, people will be furloughed, construction jobs will start, and that'll cost us billions of dollars more to restart those jobs. So again, I think Paul, as I said, has done a great job, and look forward to getting this through and working with him over the next couple of months to get a long-term 6-year bill.
Yeah, I thank you very much. I noted earlier that your insistence last year to try and move us closer and closer to really a long-term, as Paul Ryan said, a 6-year deal. And that 6-year deal makes such a difference, as you stated, with not just starting and stopping, but doing longer-term projects that are effectively paid for. I deeply believe that what both of you are doing is in the best interest of the country, and I hope that our colleagues will see that appropriately. I also had a second matter for the chairman. I've got one for you. You know that I'll continue working with you on our issue at Love Field, Dallas, Texas, and I want to thank you for your engagement, not only with me, but also the city of Highland Park in Dallas, Texas, and I want to thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chairman Cole? No questions. Gentleman from Florida, Judge Hastings.
Just one question of either or both the gentlemen, and that has to do with the funding and thinking long-term. Is the federal gas tax being considered in this long-term plan? I, for one, favor it. Most of the people in my delegation don't want to talk about it, and most people don't want to talk about tax increases, but obviously since 1993, we've not had an increase, and is that something that is being contemplated, or should it be?
No.
No.
Okay.
At this point, it's not.
Okay.
But I just want
Well,
to
then
say,
there would be a good amendment from me then.
and let me just say this to the gentleman from Florida. You know, we don't have enough time to really look at the longer term of how to solve that problem, because the gas tax is not sustainable the way it is. We've got to figure out, and the day this bill is passed and signed into law, we need to start a conversation, a national conversation about what the American people are willing to do to pay for the infrastructure they need. And I, for one, believe from the beginning of this country, there is a federal role in this to keep a national transportation system. So we've got to come up with some ideas and then go to the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee and see if we can get those things across the goal line.
Do you, Mr. Chairman, favor an infrastructure bank of sorts?
I favor infrastructure banks at the state level. My concern is every time we've done one of these big sort of financial institutions at the federal level, it gets all jumbled up. So we've encouraged, and we've looked around the country, a number of states. South Carolina, for one, has a really first-rate infrastructure bank. We should be encouraging states to do those kinds of things so that they're taking care of their business there, and we're doing our share at the federal level to make sure that system connects from South Carolina to Wisconsin.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. If I could, and we'll start back over here in a second, but I noticed that gentleman, Mr. Levin, ranking member of the Ways and Means Committee, has arrived. And Mr. Levin, we've been talking about you for the last couple of minutes. We knew you were going to be here, but the committee's been up here for quite some time today, and so we proceeded, and so we started without you. But I want to make sure now that you're here that anything the gentleman has in writing that he can leave for our awesome stenographer or to make any statement that he chooses. The gentleman's recognized.
No, thank you. I was told it would be at 4:30, so I thought I might be early.
You know what?
But I'm late, and I apologize.
I am sorry. In fact, what we did, that probably could have been correct, but we stopped for votes and came back immediately after that. So it was subject to the call of the chair as soon as we finished our votes.
Okay, well, thank you for your courtesy, as always.
Yes, sir.
you know the position of us Democrats. We very much believe there needs to be a long-term highway bill. And we have hesitated as so many times there's been a short-term extension. So that's been our basic position. Also, and the chairman and I have talked about it, we also believe, as he knows, that there needs to be, in terms of a long-term approach to this, a very strong bipartisanship. It's the only way we're going to, after how many extensions have there been? 30-something. It seems to change every day, but I think it's 34 or 35. We've been working on a possibility of a first step towards a long-term solution, and we'll see whether we bring it forth before it comes to the floor. So a short term is something that we very much want to avoid if at all possible. And again, I want to emphasize the need for us to work on a bipartisan basis because this is long overdue. So thank you, and again, I'm sorry I'm late.
Sir, we're delighted that you're here. I don't think you lost anything, but the acknowledgement from Chairman Paul Ryan that in fact, and Chairman Schuster, that they believed avoiding a misstep by doing a longer term to December 18th, by adding in what would amount to $8 billion to keep things going, they felt like was a good commitment to a long-term deal, and we're now finding out how much we agree with that. I completely agree with that. I think it's a lot of wisdom, but that's what we've decided on. Lastly, Chairman Ryan insisted to me today, clean bill. We're not going to add anything extraneous to that bill, and so we're trying not to utilize anybody's best wishes, only to the bill. And so I told Paul I would be in full support of that and that he would be welcome to come up here today. And I hope quite genuinely that we'd be able to get your help and all of our colleagues' help on getting this to at least December 18th. And I want to thank you for being here. Judge Hastings?
No question.
Mr. Polis?
No question.
All right, we've now seen the arrival of the ranking member who is here. She was here earlier, and we've spent a good bit of the afternoon here. And, you know, well, your guy, Sandy Levin's here. Yes. Yeah.
Welcome to all three.
One of your favorite guys, Paul Ryan's over there.
Nice people.
And then this guy over here on the left is Bill Schuster. Yeah, it's a pretty cool guy. Yeah, if that he is. Just ask him.
That's my father.
Yeah, just ask him. No, that's,
We still have the same initials, it's BS.
I so much appreciate somebody who wants to build something, and I put you in that category.
I'm a big fan, by the way, of Interstate 99. Is that?
did the gentleman seek time? Gentlewoman seek time?
I do not. I think I understand what we're doing here.
Good. Oh, I know you do. The question is whether you want to say something
Thank
about
you,
it.
no.
Louise has an opinion, as I do, about most things. She just has a good, strong opinion a lot of times. Where's that pie?
Well, I've got that
There
in
you
the works.
go.
I'm okay. I have to serve these
Good,
people
thank you.
rhubarb.
Gentleman's going to have to stick around for a minute. We waited for him. He's going to have to wait for us.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
it's,
They made me a
She'll-
promise,
she'll
and I
get it
think
here.
they kept it.
the gentleman, Chairman Cole, may come back if he has any questions to the remaining members. Good. The gentleman, Mr. Woodall from Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just say I was talking to folks back home in Georgia. We're still building things. We just passed $1 billion revenue increase in the state of Georgia in order to continue building. Awesome. And the question I asked my guys was, hey, the Senate's proposing an 18-month deal, and that's a lot more certainty than 5 months is. Would you rather have the Senate's 18-month deal or the 5-month deal that you're reading about Bill Schuster and Paul Ryan proposing?
Yeah, but you got to add to that. That's not the full story.
And their answer was, if Paul Ryan and Bill Schuster say that if we do a 5-month deal, we can solve this once and for all, we're with Paul Ryan and Bill Schuster. And I only say that to say that we've been down the extension road, these guys, I mean, we're the same guys in my district, they're in your district, family businesses, folks who work hard every day for a fair day's wage, folks who want to look after a taxpayer dollar by not doing the starting and stopping that Chairman Schuster was talking about. And it meant something to me. And had I added Sandy Levin to that list of names, that only would have buttressed the cause. I say to the ranking member, it means something to me that folks say, you know what, this frightens me from a business perspective. This frightens me from a taking care of my employees perspective. And it may even frighten me from a how to run transportation policy perspective. But if Paul Ryan and Bill Schuster, if Chairman Schuster and Chairman Ryan tell us that this will get us where we need to go, then we're in one more time. I just want to share that with you. I know you feel the pressure to succeed, but folks believe in what you are both doing, and believe that this time around may be the last of that 34, 35 extension. So I thank you for having earned that credibility, and I thank you for what you're trying to do to deliver on it. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back his time. The gentleman from Louisville, Texas, Dr. Burgess, does not seek time.
From the very full Louisville Lake, Louisville, Texas.
Oh, let me tell you what, that thing is, if you fly
I drove
in,
by the other day.
the I-35 is here and the water is
I know.
slapping the bottom of it. Michael Burgess couldn't be happier. Oh, the gentleman is right.
Well, it's holding up our bridge building right now, but actually that's we've funded that locally with managed lanes, so we're not dependent upon the highway bill for that one. But
Look, you can
nice
see,
of you to notice.
all the picnic tables are well underwater. It's very impressive, very impressive.
We'll sell it to the California guys on the next one.
Prayer works. That's the answer. The gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Collins, recognized, does not seek time. The gentleman from Washington does not. Well, all three of you have made a outstanding presentation. I want to thank each of you for being here. If you'll please remember that our great stenographer would appreciate anything that you leave in writing. And I want to thank you all for being here. And you did well enough to be invited back on December 18th. The chairman will now be in receipt of a motion from the gentleman from Oklahoma.
Mr. Chairman, I move the committee grant H.R. 2898, the Western Water and American Food Security Act of 2015, a structured rule. The rule provides 1 hour of general debate equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Natural Resources. The rule waives all points of order against consideration of the bill. The rule makes an order as original text for purposes of amendment, an amendment in the nature of a substitute, consisting of the text of Rules Committee Print 114-23, and provides that it shall be considered as read. The rule waives all points of order against that amendment in the nature of a substitute. The rule makes in order only those further amendments printed in the Rules Committee report. Each such amendment may be offered only in the order printed in the report, may be offered only by a member designated in the report, shall be considered as read, shall be debatable for the time specified in the report, equally divided and controlled by the proponent and unopponent, shall not be subject to amendment, and shall not be subject to demand for division of the question. The rule waives all points of order against the amendments printed in the report. The rule provides one motion to recommit with or without instructions. Section 2 of the rule provides for consideration of H.R. 3038, the Highway Transportation Funding Act of 2015, Part 2, under a closed rule. The rule provides 1 hour of debate equally divided among and controlled by the chairs and ranking minority members of the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure and in the Committee on Ways and Means. The rule waives all points of order against consideration of the bill. The rule provides that the bill shall be considered as read. The rule waives all points of order against provisions of the bill. Finally, the rule provides one motion to recommit.
You now heard the motion from the gentleman, the young chairman from Oklahoma. Does the gentleman from Washington have an update on that rule? The gentleman's recognized.
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. About this rule for H.R. 2898, the Western Waters Bill, and H.R. 3038, the Highways Extension. This rule provides a structured amendment process for the Western Waters Bill and a closed rule for the Highway Funding Extension. For the Western Waters Bill, it makes in order 8 amendments, 4 from Democrats and 4 from Republicans. These are 2 important bills, and I believe the rule deserves all of our support. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the gentleman, Mr. Newhouse. The committee has now heard the motion. Is there amendment or discussion?
There is,
Gentlewoman from New York's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have an amendment to the rule. Move the committee grant H.R. 2898 and H.R. 3038 each an open rule so that all members have the opportunity to offer amendments to the bills on the floor. Let us, I think, our side, when we last kicked the highway bill down the road there a little bit, it was done so we could have time to get a long-term bill, which obviously didn't happen. We find ourselves back here in the same boat. But I do think that we understand that we can't let the Highway Trust Fund expire, and that we've pretty much missed a construction season with the uncertainty. So I hope that in the future, very soon, we'll be able to come up with a long-term highway bill. But I would appreciate if we'd have an open rule for both of them so that everybody would have an opportunity to have this say on it.
You've now heard the amendment from the gentlewoman from New York. Further discussion? Seeing none, the vote will now be on the amendment from the gentlewoman from New York. Those in favor of the slaughter amendment, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no.
No. Roll call, please.
The gentlewoman asked for a roll call vote.
Ms. Fox?
No.
Ms. Fox, no. Mr. Cole? Mr. Cole, no. Mr. Woodall? Mr. Woodall, no. Mr. Burgess? Mr. Burgess, no. Mr. Stivers? Mr. Collins? Mr. Collins, no. Mr. Byrne? Mr. Byrne, no. Mr. Newhouse? Mr. Newhouse, no. Ms. Slaughter?
Aye.
Ms. Slaughter, aye. Mr. McGovern? Mr. Hastings? Mr. Hastings, aye. Mr. Polis? Mr. Polis, aye. Mr. Chairman?
If you could ask if the gentleman, I'd like to ask how the gentleman, Mr. Stivers, is recorded.
The gentleman is not recorded.
If you could please ask the gentleman for a recording of his vote.
Mr. Stivers, no.
Go, but we better get it in.
Mr. Chairman?
I am a no vote.
Oh, you did?
Mr. Chairman, no.
Thank you.
Clerk will report the total.
3 yeas, 9
The
nays.
amendment is not agreed to. By the way, I'm reminded of the term, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, which we have just seen witnessed.
Yeah.
An equal and opposite reaction. Maybe we can't remember what just happened, but this will all be on tape at some point. Is there further amendment or discussion? Seeing none, the motion, the vote will now be on the motion from the gentleman from Oklahoma. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no.
No.
The ayes have it. The ayes have it. And the this motion passes. The gentlewoman from North Carolina seeks time. Gentlewoman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a program called Teacher in Congress, and I have teachers from my district come out and spend about 10 days, and they shadow me and do research in the Library of Congress, and generally, hopefully, learn a lot and help make what we do more exciting to their students. And I have two teachers this year, one from Forsyth County and one from Wilkes County. Heather Hahn is from Wilkes County, and Bill Dinkins is from Forsyth. And I'm delighted that they came to observe the Rules Committee today.
It's awesome. Heather and Bill, you're now recognizing why the winner of this is normally a 25-year-old, because to stay up with Mrs. Fox requires tenacity. I hope that you get a chance to know that when you're with her like this, you need to stay with her till she goes to bed, because she normally goes to bed about midnight, and she is legendary. I am out and about late at night in the Capitol and see Mrs. Fox with hordes, loads of people all around here. So good luck this week. Good luck. Delighted that you're with us. Is there anything further for the committee for any business that might be necessary? Oh, we're going to announce that. Okay. Mr. Newhouse will be the manager of the amendment, and
Mr. Hastings.
And Judge Hastings will be for the Democrats. That is for the rule that will do H.R. 2898 and H.R. 3038. It now seems as though we have finished our work, what appears to be for the week, so I want to congratulate our staff and thank them for taking all the time that we have. The committee's now finished its work.